We're going to start in the beginning. Because when sequence is broken, logic collapses. And when logic collapses, the truth tends to get buried. Every event has a trigger. It has a beginning as well as a middle, and therefore an end. When those are rearranged, intentionally or technically or carelessly, the story changes. Facts don't change, only the order in which they are presented. In every case, there is a trigger. And in this case, the trigger is an invitation to join the Alberts at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. This invitation was extended to John O'Keefe by Chris Albert. Earlier in the day, John and his nephew walked into D&E Pizza, an establishment owned by Chris Albert. Chris invited him to join them at the waterfall. Why was John planning on going out that night? Knowing that a snow blizzard was forecasted to hit their town, their entire state. This is the same storm which caused Brian Albert, Kevin Albert, and Eddie Hernandez to cancel their flights and head back home all together on a 4-hour trip with Brian Higgins, all tucked in inside a 2016 black Dodge Ram. I'm responsible to make the right decisions at the right times. But if you're in charge, sometimes you feel responsible to make the right decisions at the right time, right? The middle in this case is how John made plans and asked Karen to meet him at C.F. McCarthy's, wanting to celebrate the acceptance of his niece to an Ivy League school. This is something that they both felt not only proud of, but a part of. This is just a backstory, right, of how everything started. Going for slices of pizza with his nephew, getting an invitation to the waterfall, going to celebrate the acceptance of an IB school for his niece, and meeting Karen at C.F. McCarthy's. From there, they went to the waterfall. And my point with all of this is that we're not going to focus on emotions, we're going to focus in order. Because when that collapses, everything is broken. This is the middle of the entire case. This is how it started. This is what led one event to another. We place the events back into sequence. By removing all emotional distortion, we're testing logic against time. We need to remember that simultaneously, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Eddie Hernandez, and Kevin Albert were coming back from a trip in New York. They attended a funeral, they say, and they agreed to ride back with Higgins on his Dodge Ram. They were dropped off at Charlestown parking lot. At least Eddie Hernandez and Brian Albert were. Higgins claims that Kevin drove back with him. That's yet to be proven. What are the odds that 2 Boston police officers, Canton police officers, and a federal agent are all off on the same night at the same time and coincidentally can all meet at the same place? What was said in that 4-hour trip? What was the intention behind Chris Albert inviting John to the waterfall? Is Kevin going to be there? That's what he asked. By 12:11:09, John was seen walking out of the waterfall, and Jen was outside waiting for him. We see them talking. The minute that they leave to go to 34 Fairview, they start texting and calling, giving each other's direction. What are the odds that Jen was controlling John and Karen's ETA? She knew how long it would take her from the waterfall to 34 Fairview. She knew it was less than a 5-minute ride. She had been there. She's done that ride plenty of times. But John had a lot of things that people have missed. Little details, little nuggets. And starting with, why out of all of these people, the person who invited John O'Keefe to the waterfall never called him, never texted him? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Where was Chris Albert? Why wouldn't he wonder where John was if he invited him to the waterfall?
I'll tell you where he was.
And later on, expecting
he was
him
the last
at
one to
34
leave the
Fairview.
waterfall bar and grill.
Where was
And
Chris?
when he walked out and was hid underneath the canopy, looked to his right, looked in front of him, and saw the Yukon leaving by his left, and he approached that Yukon. He didn't need to text John. He was inside the Yukon with Jen and Matt, and he knew exactly where John was.
So I kiss the time when I'm lying there, just get it all out. I see my head tonight, feeling a little peculiar. So I'm falling in a slip outside of my bed, and I get real high tonight, scream at the top of my lungs, what's going on?
Be careful who you trust. We never know who is who, right? Don't forget that a narrative without a logic becomes nothing. Stay tuned for the next episode of Flying Spot. I'll see you all soon.